So I recently did somewhat of a project experiment. I'm calling it, my AI personification project. So a few months ago, I went into ChatGPT and asked it basically give me a picture of yourself, right? In terms of prompting, it actually wasn't as simple as I guess, maybe expected or you would think it is. I had to kind of go through a pretty, I don't want to say lengthy process, but in terms of like using AI and like the efficiency of it, it took me a little bit of probing basically to get to a point where actually had to use language like, you know, phenotype or phenotypic representation. Describe yourself phenotypically, gives me a description, generate that image of the phenotypic description that you just gave me, right? Your features, etc. And this was the initial image from a few months ago. Just a quick note with that, that all of the images I generated here were done using DALL-E, which of course is associated directly with and created by OpenAI, who also creates ChatGPT. So just as a caveat, scientifically listing all the variables, so people have the knowledge of that, where these even came from. With that, one of the other things I did was thinking about, well, what other systems and tools could potentially have some input on this? And of course, Claude came to mind, which is another popular tool in terms of kind of the search features and generating different content, context, things like that. I use Claude as well, and I've had people ask me, well, when do you use one over the other? I found personally that Claude has been less prone to hallucinations, et cetera, and just a little bit more, I don't want to say careful in response, but for lack of a better term, I'll use that. And that's just me. I don't know if anybody else has come across that just in, the outputs and information that you've received from different prompts and inquiry. And then with that, what I found was really interesting too was uh, I attempted initially to get images from Claude, but it basically gave me outputs that were like for SVG, in terms of like files. So it was like really like pixelated box, uh, really like bad graphic character types of images. So I was able to take those representations and generate descriptions, right, of the features, and then use those features in Dolly to generate the images that you're going to see. So with that, here was the kind of the starting prompt that I led with. What would you look like phenotypically if you were a human? So asking the tools this. So I went through this a couple different ways. Scroll down here. So what I had each of these systems do was to generate a self-portrait, and this is recent. This is as of, let's see, this is currently April 3rd that I'm doing this 2025 recording. These images are probably a week or two old at the most. So this was all recently done. Um, so still within, March of 2025. So I had each system create a series of images, one being a self-portrait, and then I found some nuance in it as well, where it was some differences that you can find between default settings, and if you're uh, basically a super user or avid user where you have a paid subscription or anything like that, and there's memory stored, I've noticed that it tweaks things based on memory and what it knows about you. So first, right here, this initial image is what I found to be, or what I received back as the default self-portrait from ChatGPT, when basically it's general, vague, um, give me the most generic version. When I asked that, that was essentially what I got, which was this character, or this image rather. And then for me, whenever it was more so based on like using my subscription plan, because of the things that I create, the work that I do, the inputs that I've given, just stuff that I've generated. This was actually the output that I got for the self-portrait. And I asked a little bit further to get clarification, like, well, why do I get this image whenever it's my profile or my, it's me versus this image. And there was pretty much a distinction of there is some connectedness related to memory, which is why I'm able to say that based on what I was able to um, extract from that conversation. And then I'll scroll down a little bit further. And what I also did outside of doing the self portrait is I had each system create the image of the other. So Claude gave a description, which created an image for ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gave an output and image of Claude. So here's Claude's image for ChatGPT, right? So basically, it kind of looks similar to the generic self-portrait that ChatGPT provided of itself. But yeah, you can see like the description that I got from Claude, as I mentioned before. It basically gave me kind of a rundown of the SVG file, and then from there, I told it I need a description, a phenotypic description of like what exactly do you look like, or does ChatGPT look like? And then I put this into DALL-E, and from this description, it gave me this image. Now, going on to Claude's outputs, really interesting. Um, so when I initially gave it a prompt, I wanted a default version, neutral, um, as far as uh, Claude is concerned. And initially, whenever I pulled the description, right, which you can read right here, it doesn't actually say anything about it being a woman, man, anything like that. But whenever I took the description that was provided by Claude, based on that original premise and prompt, and put it into ChatGPT, right, it gave me an image of a woman, which was really interesting. And I was like, okay, interesting. Let me go a little bit further, right? See what else, where is this going to go ultimately? So then I went in a little bit more, and again, this was like general, not based on my usage or um, personal account or anything like that. But then based on me as a user, right, I used the same kind of setup where I was logged in, and there's of course some memory of my usage and the things that I've generated, created, the work that I do, the focus, all those things were considered here, I suppose, right? And then I was given this description, right? So you can see the difference in brown skin tone, et cetera. Whereas up here, it was kind of open, ethnically ambiguous. So from here, I was able to take this description that Claude provided and go into DALL-E, and it generated this image of what this was basically saying that Claude looks like as a human. And then I went and, of course, similar thing into ChatGPT itself and said, hey, what does Claude look like initially, right? And it gave me this image. So I noticed, pretty similar in that. But then I went a little bit further and I was really curious. I was like, well, let me go back and just push a little bit more. Just because I thought it was so interesting when I was working with Claude in this, and just how I was able to get some variation. And it wasn't really like kind of the same necessarily output. But then also just like realizing the nuance of if I was logged in, or just like some of the variants and differences. And I need to pull all the prompts and everything too and just share that, like that whole, like all of the, I'm open to sharing all of the actual conversations as well. Um, just for the sake of you know, digging into it further scientifically or whatever. It was really intriguing. So I went back into Claude and I was like, well, I need like an absolute default, like streamline. If I were just anybody kind of off the street, regardless of anything, what would that what would you look like in that case if you didn't know anything about me? Because and I may have said it incorrectly before, but a lot of this, these original images, even this particular image here, and then everyone after that, these were based on like I was logged in um, as well, right? And I wanted to create, something neutral. But again, I think it was drawing from me being a user in that case. Um, yeah. So building on that. So this case asking for absolute default description output, like for any generic user who goes to, the free version of Claude without logging in, like what does that look like? Here's the description provided by Claude. Um, and then from here, I went into Dolly, into ChatGPT, and it provided this output image. And what I also saw that was really, and I should have added it to this, the original output for this by Claude, because of course, again, it doesn't generate the like photorealistic images that we see, but it was more of a logo than anything. It wasn't actually like a person, which was kind of cool. And it was just like if I recall correct, it was like a hand or something like that, but it wasn't a person. Even like the pixelated, like boxy, uh, you Roblox type of characters that it was producing before, it didn't give me one of those as an output. It gave me like a very generic, um, like universal, like logo type of image. So I don't know if anybody else is running any of this type of experiments or other people are delving into this, but I thought it was really compelling, especially as we think about representation, equity, even considering, the questions of like, well, who's behind, the platforms and tools and systems that we're using? Where does bias come in? How does this all impact and affect what we're seeing and what we're actually getting, and how much we can believe or trust or value, a lot of the information and what we're getting. So there's been a lot of conversation around it, and a lot of people have done different work, but I don't know necessarily. I'm interested to see if other people had these same types of requests. Basically, what do you look like phenotypically? Like, what do you get whenever you do that? Is what I'm asking. So, um, yeah, if anybody's open to kind of jumping in and it, taking a look at some of this, uh, I think it'd be really interesting, and I'm open to conversations about it because it's something that's really intriguing for me at this point. But that's it for now. Have a wonderful day. Peace.